So when you hear the word topiary, what pops into your head? Probably neat little hedges, right? Or maybe some quirky animal shape in a garden. But what we're talking about here is an art form that's literally thousands of years old, a way of creating these living, breathing sculptures. And it's an art that's been both celebrated and, believe it or not, fiercely attacked.
Yeah, verdant sculpture. Back in 1713, the famous writer Alexander Pope said that, and he was not being complimentary. He was mocking it, basically calling it an absurd, unnatural taming of the wild. And that, right there, is the central question we're going to dig into. Is this art a masterpiece of human control, or is it just a bizarre twisting of nature?
Okay, so let's get a formal definition on the table. What exactly is topiary? The word itself comes from the Latin topiarius, which just means an ornamental gardener. But it's so much more than just gardening, right? It's this unique blend of horticulture and pure artistry, this deep-seated human desire to bring a little bit of order to the chaos of the natural world. And to really get a grip on topiary, we've got to look back. I mean, way back. We're talking about an incredible history that stretches over 2 millennia. And in a lot of ways, its story really mirrors the changing values of society itself.
You know, the Romans really kicked the whole thing off, using topiary as a flashy status symbol. Then, after the empire fell, it was the monks who kept the tradition alive, but for super practical reasons, just organizing their herb gardens. Fast forward to the Renaissance, and it comes roaring back, all about mathematical perfection in these grand gardens like Versailles. Then you hit its golden age in 17th century England, only for it to be literally torn down a century later because everyone suddenly wanted natural landscapes. And then, finally, it makes this huge comeback in the Victorian era. It's been a total roller coaster for these poor bushes.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can see how the art has always been a mirror of its time. For the Romans, clipping a cypress tree into a warship, that was a pure power move. Then, during the Renaissance, those perfect symmetrical orbs and shapes reflected this new belief in mathematical order and reason. And in the 17th century, those whimsical, bushy beasts were all about showing off a flair for extravagance and, well, a bit of fun.
But, making these shapes is way harder than it looks. So now, let's get into the science of it all. How does a simple idea become a living, breathing sculpture? This is where horticulture meets pure, unadulterated geometry. Okay, seriously, think about this for a second. How on earth does a gardener take a living, growing, slightly chaotic bush and shape it into a perfect sphere? It's not just about having a steady hand or a good eye. There's actually a surprisingly simple, kind of ingenious technique behind it all.
So here's the secret. It's all about a simple template. A gardener literally makes a semicircle out of something like cardboard or wood. They hold it right up against the plant's centerline, its axis, and then just rotate it. Anything that pokes out past the edge of that template, snip, it gets clipped. It's such a beautiful and practical use of basic geometry, right there in the garden. But there's also some hidden science here, and this part is absolutely crucial for the plant's health. For pyramids or those big, tall hedges, gardeners have to create what's called an A shape, making sure the base is just a little bit wider than the top. And why? Well, that simple trick lets sunlight get all the way down to the lower branches. It stops them from dying off and creating that dreaded naked bottom look that nobody wants. Of course, picking the right plant is just as important as the technique. Boxwood is like the gold standard. It has these tiny leaves and grows super dense, so it's perfect for those crisp, sharp lines. Yew, on the other hand, is the marathon runner. It's slow growing, but you can get incredible detail, and these things can live for centuries. Holly's a great substitute, and then you've got the fast-growing privet. That's the workhorse for bigger, simpler shapes like your classic hedge. Okay, so we've covered the theory. Now let's move into the real hands-on stuff, the gardener's craft. We'll look at the modern techniques for making these really complex sculptures, and also the ever-present dangers that threaten to undo hundreds of years of work in the blink of an eye.
Modern topiary often gets a seriously high-tech start. So instead of spending decades carving one giant bush, artists will often begin with a steel frame. They pack that frame with moss, fill the inside with a core of soil, and then they plant all these little starter plants right into the surface. What you get is an instant sculpture that just fills in and gets denser over time. This method lets them create incredibly detailed and complex pieces right from day one.
But here's the thing. These are living masterpieces, and that means they're fragile. Even the most magnificent 300-year-old topiary garden has a formidable enemy, one that can bring the whole thing crashing down.
And that enemy is called boxwood blight. It's this absolutely devastating fungal disease that causes the leaves to drop off really fast, and it can kill the whole plant. The worst part, the spores can live in the soil for years, so once it's in your garden, it is incredibly hard to get rid of. Gardeners have to be so vigilant, sterilizing their tools, quarantining new plants, just to protect these living heirlooms.
But you know what? The art form is resilient. So for our last section, let's look at how topiary has evolved all over the world and found some new, really exciting expressions in our modern times.
Okay, this contrast is just fascinating. Western topiary is all about imposing human order on nature, creating a dense, solid, perfect shape. But the Japanese art of Niwaki is pretty much the exact opposite. The goal there is to reveal the tree's inner character, to create an airy, open structure that, as the saying goes, a bird can fly through. It's not about control, it's about collaboration.
And that creative spirit is just everywhere today. I mean, topiary is no longer stuck in formal gardens making geometric shapes. It has totally broken free and gotten wonderfully weird.
You've definitely seen this at places like Disney World, right? Where all your favorite characters are brought to life in this vibrant, living green. This pop culture explosion has made a centuries-old art form feel really accessible and fun for a whole new generation. And then you have incredible artists like Pearl Fryer, who literally transforms discarded plants from nurseries into these stunning abstract sculptures. This isn't about making a perfect cone or a sphere, it's about using the plant as a living medium for pure, unadulterated artistic expression.
And at the most extreme end of the spectrum, you have something called mosaiculture. Now, this technique uses thousands of tiny, colorful plants to basically paint these massive three-dimensional scenes. We're talking a full-size car or a giant human figure made entirely out of living foliage. The results are just spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And that really brings us back to the central idea here. Topiary isn't just about a person forcing a plant into a shape. It's a dialogue. It's this long-term partnership, sometimes lasting for centuries, between the artist's vision and the plant's own powerful biological will to live and grow.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. After seeing its history, its science, and all of its wild modern forms, what do you think? Is topiary the ultimate conquest of nature? Or is it the ultimate collaboration with it?